Some years ago, I very nearly had to sue Apple. And this is that story. In March 2013, I bought a MacBook Pro directly from Apple and it was top of the line. Many of you remember that when they were first advertised with a Retina display, it was advertised as being a stunning Retina display. Along with the MacBook Pro, I also paid for AppleCare, which, as you all know, is an extended warranty to cover faults with the machine. This was for 3 years and ended in 2016. However, well before that warranty expired, in November of the same year that I bought the laptop in 2013, the film on the screen started to degrade. Many of you will remember this as Staingate. I contacted Apple staff on the online chat support and then by telephone to talk about this defective film. The staff confirmed very helpfully that the defect was covered under the standard warranty and a replacement screen was authorised. However, I live a little distance away from the nearest Apple store, so the round trip was about 90 minutes in total, plus waiting time, plus parking payment, all just to book the machine in for repair. This repair took approximately 5 days. As any of you will be familiar if you've ever taken anything into Apple, they keep it for a number of days before having it sent back to you, although they may have improved that somewhat in recent years. 5 days later, when the repair was complete, I had to make another 90-minute round trip, waiting time, parking, payment, everything else to collect the repaired machine. But that wasn't the end of the story. By September the following year, 2014, the film on this replacement screen also and again began to wear away in exactly the same way as before. Staingate, the return. Over the next few days, I contacted the AppleCare staff once again via the chat support and discussed the issue for over an hour before they agreed to have a follow-up phone call of a similar duration of around about an hour, just like they did the first time round. Once again, the Apple staff duly confirmed that this was covered under the standard warranty and once again ordered a replacement screen to be fitted to the machine. Back in the car I go, another 90-minute round trip plus waiting time plus parking and all the rest of it to take the machine back to the store once again for repair, once again to be without it for another 5 days or so. 5 days or so later, I made yet another and fourth 90-minute round trip to the store, plus waiting time, plus parking charges and all the rest of it, to collect the repaired machine once again. But that wasn't the end of the story. By February of the following year, we're now into 2015, the film, you guessed it, on the second replacement screen again began to wear away. Staingate returned. A day or so later, deja vu, I contacted Apple staff once again via the online chat support and discussed the issue for almost an hour. At this point, I'm getting a little ticked off, so I asked for an address to write to them to send them a formal letter of complaint, just in case a resolution could not be reached this time around. After several requests for the address, the AppleCare staff said, and I quote, "I'm so sorry, but I do not have an address for our legal department. For any legal claims, you'll need to work with your local phone support." So once again, I'm back on the phone for another hour or so discussing the history of the complaints that I've had with defective screens one after another. This time, a presumably more senior member of staff authorized a replacement of the MacBook Pro in its entirety to minimize inconvenience going back and forth to the stores as I'd done so many times already. The staff member had to take a payment from me to hold funds as security in the event that I didn't return the old one. A month or so later, I was very pleased to receive the replacement MacBook Pro, although not so pleased that I had to spend several hours setting it up, but by this point that was the least of my concerns. At least I had the machine replaced and praying that I wouldn't get this Staingate returned again. But that's not the end of the story. In December of that year, 2015, the film on the replacement MacBook Pro again began to wear away. Staingate returned yet again. Once again, deja vu doesn't quite cut it anymore. I contacted Apple staff again via the online chat support, again chatted for just under an hour, and again ended up having a phone call with yet another, presumably more senior member of staff, who again made an offer to replace the screen on the replacement MacBook Pro, following the same procedure for the 2 previous replacements of screens on the original MacBook Pro. Now, just taking a very brief pause for a moment, just to interject with consumer rights as they stand today, because all of this happened pre-Consumer Rights Act 2015. Although that's not to say much of the law wasn't already covered in the previous legislation, which broadly speaking it was, but this would have been a far simpler case under the Consumer Rights Act, in which case contracts that are concluded on or after the 1st of October 2015, in which retailers have one opportunity to repair or replace an item before you have the right of final rejection to get your money back for the product. But bearing in mind how much time this had taken up so far, at least 20 hours or so driving back and forth, waiting, waiting, spending time on chat support, time on the phone, I quite reasonably made the request for some form of compensation for having to go back yet again to the store, another 90-minute round trip, twice to deliver the machine, to retrieve the machine 5 days later, and of course to be without the machine for the 5 days in between. Such request, unsurprisingly, was refused. Nonetheless, I summarised my concerns and how long I'd spent trying to resolve this issue back and forth with replacement screens and so on, after which I received another telephone call saying that my email had been sent to their lawyers who'd agreed to replace the machine, requiring that I take the machine to a store, however, just to confirm the existence of this defect on the screen, after which they would set up a like-for-like replacement or consider a refund plus compensation. I agreed to this, although they did authorise a third-party store for the inspection, which was closer to me, so it wouldn't take quite so long to get there, although it was still around about a 45-minute round trip to go to this store just to confirm the existence of the defect on the screen, which, by the way, I'd already taken photographs of. Whilst at the third-party store, they filled out a report confirming the defect of the screen, taking approximately an hour to examine the screen and draft the report. They also decided to send several photographs confirming that the defect definitely was there and it definitely was Staingate. The staff were quite jovial, in fact, as to how many machines they'd seen coming in with this problem over the last few years. However, that wasn't the end of the story. January 2016, I received another phone call following the third-party store's email and photographs confirming the existence of the defect, stating that they were now in the position to organise the replacement MacBook Pro as promised in December the year before. I was told that an administrator would be in contact within 1 working day to confirm the replacement details as per the previous occasion. Once again, I provided my address for the delivery and payment details to hold in place just in case I didn't send back the old machine. Some days later, however, not having received the phone call, I did receive a phone call to say that the wrong code had been used internally and it was going to take a little bit more time to reprocess the replacement once again, and once again I would get a contact from an administrator within another working day or so. A few days later, having not received the phone call once again, I did receive a phone call to tell me for a second time that the incorrect code had been used and that they would have to take my details for the replacement once again, and once again I'd wait another day or so for an administrator to call me to arrange said replacement. However, it was another week or so until I received another phone call on which I was told that my machine was not going to be replaced after all. Instead, I was sent an email with an address for sending any legal correspondence. So in summary, up to this point, there were 4 separate occasions that the screen was defective. Firstly, when the original screen was defective and replaced. Secondly, when the replacement screen turned out to be defective and it was replaced. Thirdly, when the second replacement screen was found to be defective and the whole machine was replaced. Finally, when the screen on the replacement machine was found to be defective, but after which they had clearly had enough of trying to sort out this problem and flat out refused to do anything about it. It was only when I drafted a full particulars of claim and letter before claim and served them to the legal correspondence address that they actually agreed to do anything about it. At which point Apple did agree to replace the machine in its entirety once more, and Staingate finally did not return. Now, I tell you this story because I know lots of people were in exactly the same position and lots of people had exactly the same problem. I only wonder how many people gave up after the first screen replacement or the second screen replacement, or even after the whole machine was replaced and Staingate returned. Because if you spend £2,000 or £3,000 on these machines, you expect them to last for a good few years. Now, to be fair to Apple, I still have an iMac that I purchased in around about 2007 or 8, which is still perfectly good to this day. It's a little slow, but it still works, and it's still in good condition. But as many of you know, many products over the years have had faults, and credit to Apple where it's due, they do generally sort them out. But this was one string of events, perhaps because it was a very expensive machine, that although initially happy to replace the screens and so on, it got to a point where it was clearly very expensive for Apple to keep replacing the screens and the machine. But at the end of the day, having spent such an amount of money on a machine, I didn't want a screen that was going to disintegrate to such a degree that it was just not usable. So that story, along with many others, is one of the catalysts for me making this channel, so I can help you hopefully to understand these legal problems and what you can do about them, and help to provide you some kind of guidance and reassurance that you can persevere with these things and you can get a resolution at the end of the day. So if you want to know how to go about making claims, especially consumer claims, I've linked a playlist in the description below with other consumer law related videos so you can learn about it, understand it a little bit more, and hopefully get these issues resolved. So please give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe if you like these stories and you like to have some guidance on law. And as always, thank you for watching.